for the discussion here today. I'm not an expert either. I'm one of those who normally negotiate, but now we will see how I survive this. For my country, at least the issue we have before us today, capacity building in climate change for developing countries, is one of the major issues we are confronted with in the climate debate. And there are, as the executive director said, several ways to approach it. I have chosen to make my introduction here in the light of the special role which Denmark has since we are going to host in 2009 the next big follow-up conference, the COP15, the Conference of the Parties, to the International Convention on Climate Change, that will be in December 2009. Hosting this COP15 is a challenging task for a country like Denmark. We are a small country. There are no guarantees that we will be able to reach an agreement, and it will indeed require all our joint efforts and particular attention to be given to the special role for developing countries. I would like to say a few words about Bali, because Bali is really for all of us the roadmap we have now. And in Bali we agreed on some key building blocks which are essential and in many ways interlinked. The first one focuses on the mitigation of climate change, ambitious reduction commitments by developed countries and committed efforts by developing countries, especially the large and more advanced developing countries. Secondly, as climate change is already happening, we have to face the fact that high priority has to be given to adaptation, because developing countries are most vulnerable to climate change. The industrialized countries have a clear responsibility to assist developing countries in dealing with the impacts of climate change. The third building block from Bali is technology, development, diffusion, and transfer of clean technology. Energy technologies must be given a very high priority, and we need the industrialized countries to enhance research and development of climate-friendly technologies. And fourthly, we have, as was also just said by the Executive Director, to address the financial aspect of our efforts to tackle climate change. The development of a global carbon market will be a crucial component of a future financial regime, and we need a common price regime for all carbon emissions. We need to be creative and further develop our options for market approaches and innovative financing mechanisms. Whatever we do, we have to do it in a concerted and cost-effective manner. We owe this to all partners in North, in South, and at least in my country, we also owe it to our taxpayers. The Bali Action Plans call for enhanced action for the provision of financial resources and investment to support action on mitigation and adaptation and technology cooperation. It further calls for improved access to new and additional resources, including official and concessional funding for developing countries. If we can establish a coordinated framework for climate-related financing, we will not only provide effective support for climate-friendly and climate-resilient development, we will also enhance the prospects for a global climate deal in 2009. Although poor countries do not contribute much to the problem of climate change, they are being affected most. Climate change puts the world carrying capacity under increasing pressure. The ecosystems that provide food, water and fuel are being degraded by a combination of climate change and associated disturbances. In poor and vulnerable regions of the world, the climate hazards may aggravate poverty and conflict and lead to increased migration. The international community has now realized the enormous impact of climate change and has strengthened its work to counter these very problems. This is also the case for a large number of Geneva-based organizations. Let me just outline a few examples below. We have, of course, the WMO, the World Meteorological Organization, who deals with several of these core issues. But we also have in the humanitarian sector, OCHA and UNHCR. which are now stepping up analysis and programming, taking into account climate change. So are IOM and the Red Cross Red Crescent movement, the UN International Strategy for Disaster Reduction, to which my country is firmly committed, is looking to strengthen community resilience to natural disasters, including those stemming from climate change. On 7 April, the World Health Day, WHO Director General Dr. Margaret Chan gave a clear message regarding the impact of climate change on health. Climate change endangers human health. The effects of extreme weather events, more storms, floods, droughts, and heat waves will be abrupt and acutely felt and can affect some of the most fundamental determinants of health: air, water, food, shelter, and freedom from disease. However, we cannot leave it to the international organizations and our engagement with them alone to solve the problems. All countries, including developing countries, need to take a lead in building their own capacity to handle the challenges from climate change. The basic administrative infrastructure is lacking in a number of least developed countries. This further enhances the challenges faced by developing countries in their efforts to adapt to climate change and in addressing their mitigation potentials and adaptation needs. Much work, therefore, must be done in order to address this gap. Building up administrative infrastructure and the necessary agencies to address the challenge of climate change is essentially capacity building. As a host of the COP15, Denmark is well aware of the close connection between developing countries' capacity in the area of addressing climate change and the successful outcome of the conference in Copenhagen in 2009. And it is therefore only logical that Denmark strongly supports that capacity building should be an integral part of the climate negotiations. As the need for the active participation of developing countries continues to grow, we believe that the crucial role of capacity building should be expressed more and more clearly. In Bali, we therefore also agreed on the need for a coherent framework for capacity building. It was decided that a second comprehensive review of the whole capacity building framework will start already this year, to be concluded in Copenhagen in 2009. The negotiating tracks are well in line with each other. Lack of institutional capacity should not serve as an excuse for developing countries not to take on commitments in a future climate agreement. Instead, we need to address the institutional gaps that exist in these countries. The specific scope and character of capacity building needed in the individual countries will obviously depend on the final outcome of the negotiations. However, we already have a number of very good indications from a variety of sources, such as national communications, annual submissions, and synthesis reports, as well as reports of the Global Environment Fund and other relevant material. As is clear from my intervention, a series of challenges lies ahead of us. Let me mention 5. Climate change must be integrated into a wide range of policy areas, including energy policy, trade, investments, and development cooperation. The negative impacts of climate change are already felt, particularly in vulnerable developing countries, and actions to respond are urgently needed. The demand for energy in developing countries is increasing, and without climate-friendly energy solutions, the climate problem will only accelerate. Developing countries must do their part, supported by donors, to increase capacity and transform governance and policies towards climate-friendly development. Developed countries must respond and raise more financing for climate change in a concerted manner. Fortunately, there are equally important opportunities matching these challenges. And I would like to mention also in this respect 5 opportunities. There is now a momentum to scale up actions to respond to the climate challenge. Early action on adaptation will reduce the cost of action. The enormous investment needs of developing countries offer a window of opportunity for climate-friendly investments. A massive turnaround towards climate-friendly energy will create jobs and savings on energy budgets also in developing countries. Several countries, including Denmark, have demonstrated that it is possible to maintain economic growth and social welfare while keeping energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions down. Also, developing countries can pursue this opportunity. Let me conclude by underlining once again that Denmark is fully committed to doing its part in countering climate change and its effects. Environment is the largest thematic area for Danish development assistance. Approximately 1/4 of total Danish assistance, one way or the other, is related to the environment. We have an obligation to move forward in addressing the challenges and seizing the opportunity. And we need to ensure that we reach an agreement in Copenhagen in 2009. Thank you.